I'm 77 years old and I spent 50 years telling people about God. What I'm about to tell you might cost me what's left of my reputation, might cost me friends, might make my own children look at me different. But I'm tired. I'm tired of carrying this. For 15 years, from the time I was 58 until the day I retired at 73, I stood behind that pulpit every single Sunday and preached about a God I wasn't sure existed anymore. 15 years of sermons about faith. 15 years of hospital visits telling dying people they were going home to glory. 15 years of funerals where I promised grieving families their loved ones were in a better place. And the whole time there was a voice in my head saying, what if none of it's real? What if you're lying to these people? You want to know what loneliness really is? Try being the person everyone else leans on. Try being the one who's supposed to have all the answers when you can't even sleep at night because the questions are eating you alive. I need to take you back so you understand how I got here. I was called to preach at 19 years old. 19, still had acne, didn't know anything about anything, but I felt it, or I thought I felt it, this pull, this certainty that God had put his hand on my shoulder and said, this is your purpose. And for nearly 40 years I never doubted it, not once. I built a church from 73 people to over 800. I married young couples and buried their grandparents. I baptized babies and counseled teenagers and held the hands of dying men who told me things they'd never told their own wives. People called me Pastor Richard, but what they meant was, you're the one who's supposed to hold it together. You're the one who's supposed to know. And I did know. I knew Scripture like I knew my own name. I knew exactly what to say when a mother lost her child. I knew how to explain suffering in a way that made it almost bearable. I believed every word, until I didn't. October 14th, 2005. That's the date I mark it. Though the truth is, faith doesn't die all at once. It dies like a tree with root rot. Looks fine on the outside long after it's hollow. But October 14th is when I couldn't pretend anymore, even to myself. There was a girl in my congregation named Destiny, 12 years old. Sweetest child you ever met, sang in the youth choir, had this laugh that could fill up a room. Destiny had leukemia. We'd been praying for her for 2 years. I'm talking serious prayer. The whole congregation, prayer chains, fasting, laying on of hands. I'd go to that hospital and I'd pray over that child like I was wrestling with God himself. And I believed that God would heal her. I told her mother, Sandra, that I had faith. I told Destiny that God was going to show up. October 14th, I got the call at 6 in the morning. She was gone. I drove to that hospital and I walked into that room and I saw Sandra holding her daughter's body, and something inside me just broke. Not because a child died. I'd seen death before. I'd buried plenty of people, including children. What broke me was the look on Sandra's face when she saw me. She looked at me like I was supposed to fix this, like I was supposed to have an answer, like I was supposed to explain how a good God lets a 12-year-old girl die slowly in pain while her mother watches. And for the first time in my life, I had nothing. I opened my mouth to say the things I always said. God's ways are higher than our ways. She's not suffering anymore. We'll see her again. And the words tasted like ash. I said them anyway. I hugged Sandra and I said all the right things. And I drove home and I sat in my car in the driveway for 2 hours because I couldn't go inside and face my wife. Because I knew I didn't believe it anymore. Here's what nobody tells you about losing your faith when you're a pastor. You can't tell anyone Think about it. Who was I supposed to confide in? My wife? Dorothy had been a pastor's wife for 35 years. Her whole identity was wrapped up in this. Her friends were church people. Her social life was church events. If I told her I didn't believe anymore, I was asking her to lose everything too. My children? They grew up watching their daddy preach. They brought their friends to church to hear me. My son told me once that I was the most faithful man he'd ever known. How do you look at your son and say, actually, I've been pretending for years? My congregation, those 800 people who came every Sunday looking for hope, the ones who tithed out of paychecks that couldn't really spare it because they believed in what we were building, what was I supposed to say? Sorry, folks. Turns out, I'm not sure any of this is real. Good luck figuring it out on your own. And here's the thing nobody wants to admit. I was also terrified. Terrified of losing my income. Terrified of losing my status. Terrified of who I was without that pulpit. I'd been Pastor Richard since I was 19 years old. Take away the pastor part. And who was Richard? I didn't know. Didn't want to find out. So I kept preaching. You want to know what that's like? 15 years of performing a faith you don't feel? Every Sunday I'd wake up with dread sitting on my chest like a stone. I'd put on my suit, always the navy one or the charcoal one, always with the right tie, always looking like what a pastor's supposed to look like. I'd drive to church with Dorothy, and I'd smile at people in the parking lot, and I'd shake hands in the lobby, and the whole time and there's this voice in my head going, fraud, hypocrite, liar. Then I'd stand behind that pulpit and open my Bible and deliver sermons I'd spent all week writing. And the crazy thing, the sermons were good. Some of the best preaching I ever did was in those 15 years. Because I was working twice as hard to convince myself along with everyone else. I was preaching at my own doubts. People would come up to me after service, tears in their eyes, saying, Pastor Richard, that message changed my life. I felt the Spirit so strong today. And I'd think, well, one of us felt something because I felt nothing. The loneliness of it, that's what I need you to understand. There's a special kind of loneliness that comes from being surrounded by people who love a version of you that doesn't exist. 800 people looking at me every Sunday, hundreds of conversations, dinner invitations, phone calls in the middle of the night when somebody's marriage was falling apart, or their kid was on drugs, or they just got a bad diagnosis. I was never alone. Never. And I was the loneliest man in that building, because every single interaction was built on a lie. Every hug, every prayer, every I love you, Pastor. They loved the mask. They loved the performance. They didn't know me at all. Some nights I'd lie awake next. Dorothy, married 42 years, this woman I loved more than breathing, and I'd feel completely unknown. She'd ask me what was wrong. I'd say I was just tired. Tired. That was my answer for everything. What's wrong, Richard? Tired. You seem distant lately. Just tired. 15 years of tired. I tried to get it back. The faith. I tried everything. I read books, theology books, apologetics books, books by people who'd had doubts and found their way back. I read the atheists too, thinking maybe if I understood their arguments, I could refute them. That backfired. I prayed, not because I believed anyone was listening, but because I was desperate. I'd get on my knees in my study at 2 a.m. and beg God, if he existed, to show himself, to give me something, anything. Silence. I'd go to pastors' conferences and watch other preachers and try to figure out if they really believed or if they were faking it too. I couldn't tell. Maybe we all were. I even thought about going to therapy, but I couldn't figure out how to do it without word getting out. Small city, everybody knows everybody. Pastor seen going into a counselor's office? That's a rumor that spreads before you get home. So I just kept going, week after week, year after year. And the gap between who I was in public and who I was in private got wider and wider until I felt like two different people. The lies I told, that's what haunts me. The specific lies. Marvin Thompson, good man, worked at the textile mill until it closed, then worked wherever he could find work. Came to me when his wife was dying of ovarian cancer, sat in my office and wept, and asked me if she was going to heaven. I told him yes, absolutely yes. I told him she'd be waiting for him when his time came. I told him death wasn't an ending. I don't know if any of that's true. I told him anyway. Cassandra Williams, 17 years old, got pregnant, thought about ending it, came to me torn apart. I counseled her for hours, prayed with her, used scripture, made the case for life. She had that baby, named him Isaiah. Did I have the right to use a faith I didn't have to influence a decision that would shape her entire life? The Jenkins family lost their son overseas. Military funeral. I stood there in my robe and delivered the eulogy and talked about sacrifice and glory and reunion. His mother grabbed my hands afterward and said, "Pastor Richard, you gave us such peace. Peace I couldn't find for myself. Peace I wasn't sure was real. Packaged up and delivered like it was certain." Here's the lie I want to expose for you, the one I believed for 50 years. The lie is that faith is supposed to be easy. The lie is that real believers don't doubt. The lie is that if you question God, something's wrong with you. I grew up in a tradition where doubt was shameful. You didn't talk about it. If you had questions, you prayed harder, read more scripture, got your mind right. Doubt was the devil trying to steal your faith. So when the doubts came, I thought I was broken. I thought I was failing. I thought if people knew what was going on inside my head, they'd know I was never really called in the first place. But here's what I've learned since. Every honest person doubts. Every person who actually thinks about what they believe, really thinks, doesn't just accept what they were taught, has moments where none of it makes sense. The difference is whether you have permission to say it out loud. I never gave myself permission, and I never gave my congregation permission either. I preached certainty because I thought that's what they needed. But certainty isn't faith. Certainty is the opposite of faith. Faith is what you have when you're not certain. Otherwise, it's just knowledge. I robbed my people of the chance to bring their real doubts into the light. I created a space where everyone had to pretend, just like I was pretending. What do I believe now? That's the question, isn't it? After everything, what does Pastor Richard actually believe at 77 years old? Here's my honest answer. I don't know if there's a God. Not the way I used to preach it. The all-powerful, all-knowing, personally invested being who counts the hairs on your head and has a plan for your life. That God stopped making sense to me when Destiny died, when I watched children starve on the news, when I saw good people destroyed and terrible people prosper. But I don't know there's not a God either. What I believe now is smaller and harder to put into words. I believe something holds the universe together. I believe there's more than just matter bouncing around in a void. When I watch my grandchildren laughing, when I hold Dorothy's hand, when I see someone choose kindness when cruelty would be easier, I feel something. I don't know what to call it anymore, but I feel it. I believe we're connected to each other in ways that science can't fully explain. I believe love is real. Suffering is real. The choice to do right when doing right costs you something. That's real. I believe in what happens in the space between people. That might be God. It might not. I'm okay not knowing. And death? I spent 50 years promising people they'd live forever in paradise. Now I'm 77, and my own death isn't theoretical anymore. It's close. Here's what I hope. I hope there's something. I hope consciousness doesn't just stop. I hope I'll see my mother again, and my father, and all the people I've buried over the years. But hope isn't the same as certainty, and I've learned to live in the hoping without demanding the certainty. The hardest conversation I ever had was 4 years ago. After I retired, I finally told Dorothy. 58 years of marriage, finally honest. We were sitting on the porch. Summer evening, fireflies coming out. I'd been retired about a year, and the secret was eating me from the inside. I said, Dorothy, I have to tell you something, and I need you to let me finish before you respond. Then I told her everything. The loss of faith at 58, the 15 years of pretending, the loneliness, the guilt. I've never been more terrified in my life. I thought she might leave. Thought she might look at me with disgust. Thought 58 years might end right there on that porch. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Richard, I've known something was wrong for years. I just didn't know what. She said, you think I haven't had my own doubts? You think I believe everything as easy as you thought I did? She said, you should have told me. And she was right. I should have told her. 30 years ago, I should have trusted her with my real self instead of protecting her from it. We talked until 3 a.m, cried together, held each other. It didn't fix everything. You don't undo 15 years of disconnection in one night, but it started something. For the first time in decades, I wasn't alone. I told my children too, last year. My son didn't take it well. He felt betrayed. Everything he'd believed about his father, shaken. We're still working through it. Sunday dinners are awkward now. My daughter surprised me. She said, Dad, I've had my own questions for years. I thought something was wrong with me. I gave her what I couldn't give myself at her age. Permission. Permission to doubt. Permission to question. Permission to not have it all figured out. That might be the most useful thing I've done in 50 years of ministry. So here's what I need to tell you. If you're carrying something, a doubt, a secret, a truth about yourself that you think would destroy everything if it came out, hear me. The weight of hiding will kill you slower than the truth ever could. I know it feels impossible. I know you've got reasons, people depending on you, roles you're supposed to play, a version of yourself that everyone expects. But that version isn't you, and every day you protect the image, you betray the person. You want to know what freedom feels like? Freedom feels like telling Dorothy the truth on that porch. Freedom feels like looking at my daughter and saying, it's okay to not know. Freedom feels like preaching my last sermon, the one where I actually told the congregation I'd struggled watered down version though it was, and not performing for once. Freedom is exhausting at first. Then it's the only thing that feels like breathing. Stop waiting. Whatever conversation you've been avoiding, stop waiting. The phone call you need to make, the truth you need to tell, the doubt you need to speak out loud to someone who can hold it with you. Stop waiting for the right moment. The right moment is a myth. There's just this moment, and then the next one, and then you're 77 years old wondering where the time went. I wasted 15 years performing certainty I didn't have, 15 years of distance from my wife, 15 years of lying to people who trusted me. I can't get that back. But you might still have time. You might be 30 years away from where I am now, with all that road still in front of you. Don't walk it alone. Don't walk it hiding. I still go to church sometimes, different church than the one I built, somewhere I can sit in the back and just be. I listen to the sermons, and sometimes I roll my eyes a little because I hear the same certainties I used to preach, and I think, brother, you might want to leave some room in there for doubt. But I also hear the music, and I see the people reaching out to each other, and I watch how they hold the grieving ones, and I think, this is real. Whatever else is true, this is real. Community is real. Love is real. The choice to show up for each other, that's real. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all there ever was, and we just called it God because we needed a name for it. Or maybe God's real, and He's been there the whole time, patient with my questions, not offended by my doubts. I don't know. And for the first time in my life, I'm at peace with not knowing. If you're still watching this, thank you. Thank you for letting an old preacher confess his sins. I spent 50 years telling people how to live, and the truth is, I was figuring it out just like everyone else. Still am. What I know now fits in a thimble. Love the people in front of you. Tell them the truth. Let them see you, the real you, not the performance. Doubt out loud. Hold your certainties loosely. Be kind when you can. Be honest when it costs you something. And when someone asks you what you believe, have the courage to say, I don't know if that's the truth. That kind of honesty might be the most sacred thing there is. I'm 77 years old. I don't have many years left. Maybe 10, maybe 1. Maybe I won't wake up tomorrow. But however many days I have, I'm going to spend them being Richard. Not Pastor Richard, not the performance, just Richard. It only took me 50 years to meet him. Don't wait as long as I did.